I was just trying to buy a damn toolbox. That's how this whole mess started. Saturday morning, coffee half gone, scrolling through Facebook Marketplace like every other middle-aged man convincing himself that organizing the garage will fix his marriage. I saw everything, from broken lawnmowers to someone's used Roomba. But then, there it was. Tessa's engagement ring. I damn near spilled my mug when I saw it. Same white gold band, same little nick on the side from when she dropped it the week I proposed. Even the tiny engraving inside. All my tomorrows. I'd picked that line myself. At first, I thought it had to be a coincidence. Maybe someone else out there had the same bad handwriting as the jeweler who butchered the Y. But the photo was too clear. That was her ring. No question. The listing said, $14K white gold engagement ring. $500, quick sale, no holds. Now, we're not rich, but I paid $4,000 for that thing 10 years ago. So, either this seller didn't know what they had, or didn't care. I clicked the profile. Rita's resale and pawn. HWY 92. 15 minutes from our house. I laughed. Out loud. The kind of laugh that comes from disbelief, not humor. Because 6 months ago, Tessa cried over that same ring. Claimed she lost it at the gym. Said she'd been so careless. We even tore the house apart looking for it. I told her not to beat herself up. It's just a ring, baby. Turns out it wasn't lost. It was listed. I drove to that pawn shop before my better judgment could wake up. It smelled like old copper and cigarette smoke. That mix of stories you can't wash out. A lady behind the counter, thick glasses and sharper tone, looked up mid-scroll. "You buying or selling?" she asked. "Buying," I said, holding my phone out with the listing. She squinted. "Oh, that one. Just came in last month. Do you remember who brought it in?" I tried to sound casual, but my voice cracked right through the middle like a cheap record. She looked me up and down, then said, "You her husband?" That caught me off guard. Why would you ask that?" She shrugged. "'Cause she cried the whole time she filled out the form. I remember faces like that. And just like that, I felt something in my chest twist so tight I couldn't breathe right. She handed me the ring in a velvet box. The same one I'd given Tessa on a freezing night under the old oak tree at Piedmont Park. I stared at it, trying to feel angry, but all I felt was hollow. Like someone had hit the mute button on my life. That evening, Tessa was sitting on the couch when I got home, laptop open, hair up in that messy bun she always wore when she graded papers. "Hey babe," she said without looking up. "You were gone a while." I held the small box behind my back and leaned on the doorway. "Yeah, had to run an errand." She looked up, smiled. "You okay? You look weird." "Do I?" I said, walking closer. "You remember that ring you lost?" Her face changed just slightly. Not guilt, not fear, more like someone trying to find the right mask before the camera flashes. "Oh, yeah. I still feel so awful about that." I placed the box on the coffee table. Her eyes widened. She didn't touch it, just stared like it was a ghost. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "Facebook Marketplace," I said. "Funny thing, it was 15 minutes from here." She blinked fast, searching for a lifeline. I must have dropped it somewhere, and someone must have sold it." "Right," I said, leaning back on the couch arm. "Someone found it, figured out your name, and pawned it using your ID?" Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence in that living room was so thick you could butter it. Now, I ain't no jewelry appraiser, but when your wife's a lost engagement ring shows up online between a weed whacker and a PS5, you don't need a therapist. You need a lie detector. Hit that subscribe button before my sanity goes to auction. Back to the mess. Tessa finally spoke. "Marcus, it's not what you think." I smiled. That's what everybody says right before it's exactly what I think. She stood up, pacing, wringing her hands. "Please, just give me a night to explain, okay? It's complicated." I stared at her. My wife, the woman I'd trusted through job losses, hospital bills, and quiet nights where love felt easy. And in that moment, she looked like a stranger rehearsing lines from a bad play. "Complicated?" I said softly. "Tessa, you sold our history for $500. She opened her mouth again, but no sound came out. And that's when I realized whatever story was coming next, I wasn't ready for it. Because if a ring could tell lies, what else in our life had been polished to hide the cracks? I didn't sleep that night. Not because we fought. We didn't. That was the scary part. Tessa went upstairs without another word, like she was tucking her guilt into bed. Meanwhile, I sat downstairs in the dark, watching the ring glint under the lamp, the diamond catching light like it was mocking me. By morning, I'd convinced myself there had to be some explanation. Something simple. Something that didn't make me the fool. So I went back to the pawn shop. The bell above the door jingled, and Rita, the woman behind the counter, looked up from her crossword. She gave me that kind of smirk older folks use when they've seen too much of life, and none of it surprises them anymore. "Well, look who's back," she said, snapping her gum. "How'd the reunion go?" "Could have been worse," I muttered. "Mind if I ask you a few questions about the ring?" She squinted, sizing me up. "You a cop?" "No." "Then buy something or start talking quick. I got bills, not patience." I laid the ring box on the counter. "You said yesterday she was crying when she sold it. Did she say why?" Rita leaned back, crossing her arms. "Honey, people pawn things for two reasons: desperation or stupidity. Sometimes both." I exhaled through my nose. "Desperation for what?" She shrugged. "Didn't say much. Just asked how fast I could pay. Told me it was for something she had to know. Thought maybe it was medical, but she wasn't sick. Not the way she looked." That line stuck to me like glue. For something she had to know. I pressed her again. "She used her real name?" "Yep. Signed the slip right here." She turned the ledger around, and there it was. Tessa Hale. Her neat little teacher handwriting, dated 2 months ago. 2 months. She'd been lying for 2 months while I still joked about her losing it. I asked, "Can I keep that copy?" Rita smiled. "You can take a picture, handsome. I don't need no married woman drama messing up my shop." I snapped the photo, thanked her, and stepped out into the Georgia heat. It hit me like a slap. Humid, heavy, unrelenting. Same as the truth I was walking around with. That evening, I came home early. The house smelled like baked ziti, Tessa's favorite peace offering. She was humming in the kitchen, soft and sweet, like nothing happened. I stood in the doorway, just watching her. The way she moved around the counter, how she pushed her hair back when it fell into her face. I used to love that. Now it just looked rehearsed. She turned around and jumped when she saw me. "You scared me! You're home early!" "Yeah," I said, setting my keys down. Rita said hi. The name landed like a stone between us. She froze, wooden spoon midair. "Who?" "Pawn shop owner," I said. "The one on Highway 92. She remembered you." Color drained from her face like someone unplugged her soul. She talks too much," Tessa muttered, turning away. "That's so." I stepped closer. "She said you needed the money for something you had to know. What was it, Tessa?" She stirred the sauce like she was trying to dissolve the question. "It's not important anymore. Try me." She spun around, eyes bright with unshed tears. "Marcus, please, I made a mistake, okay? I was trying to help someone." "Who?" "Just someone from work. She was dealing with a private situation, and—" "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't turn this into a Hallmark movie. You sold our ring. What could possibly be worth more than that?" She looked down. "I can't tell you yet." I laughed, but there was no humor left in it. "You already did." That night, I slept on the couch. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like a confession that never came. And when the sun came up, I knew I couldn't wait for her to feel ready anymore. Because the truth wasn't hiding. It was running. And I was already on its trail. I spent the next 2 days pretending. Pretending I didn't already know the look of guilt. Pretending the woman sleeping next to me wasn't the same one who'd pawned her ring for secrets. But pretending takes work. You start noticing little things you used to miss. The way she kept her phone flipped over at dinner. How her smile stayed polite, but never reached her eyes. Tuesday night, I snapped. She was folding laundry in the bedroom, humming again. Same tune, same calm. like she'd rehearsed peace. "Tessa," I said quietly. "What was it for?" She didn't look up. What was what for? The money from the ring. The air went heavy. You could have heard the dryer's timer ticking from a mile away. She sighed, still folding. It wasn't about the money, Marcus. Then what? She sat on the edge of the bed, fingers trembling on the fabric. It was for someone who needed help. I stared at her. That's the second time you've said that. You got a name? Or is this another one of your invisible friends? Her jaw tightened. It was a private matter, for a friend who didn't want their husband to find out. Oh, that's convenient, I said, pacing now, because her husband sounds like a real idiot. She stood, crossing her arms. Marcus, stop twisting everything. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I snapped. Because from where I'm standing, you sold your ring to cover something you can't admit. Her eyes flashed, tears threatening. Fine, you want to know? It was for a test. A DNA test. The world froze. I didn't breathe. Whose test? I asked slowly. She swallowed. It wasn't mine. Whose then? Her lips quivered. A friend's. She wasn't sure who the father was. I could feel my pulse pounding behind my eyes. You expect me to believe that? You sold our ring for somebody else's drama? Yes, she cried, because she couldn't do it herself, Marcus. She was scared. I didn't say another word. I just walked out, grabbed my keys, and left. Because if I stayed, I might have said something I couldn't take back. The parking lot outside the clinic was empty when I pulled up. I didn't know what I was looking for. Proof, maybe. Or closure. Something real to hold on to besides her lies. The front desk girl was barely old enough to rent a car. Can I help you? She asked, voice bright and bored all at once. I held out my phone with the photo of the pawn receipt. I think my wife paid you for something 2 months ago. She glanced at it, then frowned. Sir, I can't share client info. It's under Tessa Hale, I said, voice cracking from exhaustion, not anger. Please. Something in my tone must have hit. She typed fast, then looked up. Yeah, that name's on file. But the mother's name was redacted. My stomach dropped. Redacted? She nodded. By request. Only authorized contact can view it. Authorized. That word sat in my gut like a brick. Because the only reason someone gets authorization is if the test involves them. When I got home, the house was dark except for the kitchen light. Tessa was at the table, hands clasped, eyes red. She didn't even flinch when I dropped the clinic's business card in front of her. Tell me who the baby is, I said. Her chin trembled. Marcus, tell me. She shook her head, whispering, It's not my secret to tell. I laughed, bitter and hollow. Funny, you made it your problem to pay for. Hold up, a friend? Girl, please. Every time somebody says that, an episode of Maury writes itself. If your wife sells her ring to fund a DNA test and can't say whose baby it is, you're not married. You're in a telenovela. Hit that subscribe button while I grab my popcorn. Back to the chaos. I sat across from her, the table between us like a border wall. You know what hurts the most? I said quietly. Not the lie, the practice. You've gotten so good at it, I almost believed you again. She looked up, eyes wet. I didn't want to hurt you. Then you shouldn't have made me choose between believing you and believing my gut. I stood, turned to leave, then stopped in the doorway. Tessa, you said it was someone you know, someone scared. She nodded weakly. Then tell me one thing, I said. Why does her name show up in your car's Bluetooth history? Her face went pale. The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was recognition. That's when I knew. Whoever this friend was, I already knew him. You ever have one of those moments when the air itself turns against you? That's what it felt like. Standing in our living room, watching Tessa's face drain of color, while my brain scrambled to catch up. Who is it? I asked again. Quieter this time. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Just trembling silence. I took a step closer. The name on your Bluetooth. Landon Brooks. Your cousin. You want to tell me why his name pops up in your car every week? She flinched like I'd hit her. Marcus, please, it's not what you think. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You really got to stop saying that, Tess. Because every time you do, it turns out to be exactly what I think. Just worse. Her hands went to her face, shoulders shaking. It was one time. I swear to you, it was one time. I froze. The words barely made sense leaving her mouth. You slept with him? She nodded once, slow, like each inch of motion hurt. I backed away, feeling for something solid behind me, like the floor might give out. Her voice cracked. It was after your dad's funeral. We'd all been drinking. I was lost. He was there. And I swear it meant nothing. It just happened. That's not something that just happens, I said. Tripping on the stairs happens. Leaving the stove on happens. I pointed toward the kitchen counter, where the clinic card still sat. This takes planning. Her tears spilled over. I didn't even know I was pregnant until months later. I panicked. I didn't want to believe it could be his. I needed to know. I felt my chest tighten, air burning in my lungs. So you sold our ring to pay for the test. She nodded. I didn't have anyone else I could tell. And the baby? I whispered. Where's the baby now? Her voice came out like a confession to God himself. With his family. I told everyone it was my cousin's ex's kid. No one questioned it. You ever fix an engine that leaks from everywhere? You patch one hole, and two more start crying. That's marriage after betrayal. Duct tape dreams, holding up a totaled car. Hit that subscribe button before I trade this lemon in for peace of mind. Back to the heartbreak. I didn't move for a long time. Just stared at her. At the woman I thought I knew better than myself. The woman I'd trusted with everything. Finally, I said, Landon knew, didn't he? She nodded, eyes squeezed shut. That was it. I grabbed my keys. She reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't, I said. Not this time. I drove straight to Landon's. His porch light was on, and through the window, I saw him sitting there, calm as ever, sipping beer, like his whole world wasn't about to collapse. He opened the door before I even knocked. Marcus, hey man, Don't. My voice was low, shaking, but it carried all the weight in the world. Did you know? He didn't answer. Just glanced down at his drink like it might help him lie. Say it, I hissed. You knew the baby was hers. He rubbed his jaw. It wasn't supposed to go that far. She told me she'd... Don't finish that sentence. The sound that came out of me wasn't yelling. It was worse. Quiet, sharp, final. You knew she was my wife. You grew up together. You stood beside me at our wedding, Landon. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. Sorry? I said, stepping closer. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't unmake what you did. Sorry doesn't make her any less the mother of your child. He blinked. You're not going to hit me. No, I said, because I want you to live with it. When I got home, Tessa was sitting on the floor by the front door, knees to her chest, the way people sit when they've run out of lies to lean on. She looked up, voice breaking. You hate me? I thought about that for a second. No. Hate takes energy. I'm just done spending mine on someone who pawned our truth for silence. I went upstairs, grabbed a bag, and packed what I needed. No yelling, no slammed doors, just the sound of a zipper closing. Clean. Final. When I walked out, she whispered, Where will you go? I didn't look back. Anywhere that doesn't sound like your name. The first thing I noticed after leaving was the quiet. Not peace. Quiet. That heavy kind that follows an explosion, when the world's still catching its breath and you're wondering if you survived it or just haven't realized you're dead yet. I drove without a destination. No music, no GPS, just me and the sound of tires eating up miles of Georgia asphalt. By the time the sun came up, I was parked outside my old auto shop. I'd opened it with money from my dad's life insurance, the same man whose funeral Tessa used as her excuse for that night. The irony wasn't lost on me. Inside, the place smelled like motor oil and second chances. I brewed a pot of burnt coffee on the old machine, the one that sputtered like it had trauma too. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel angry. Just empty. 3 days later, a package showed up at the shop. No return address, just my name scrawled across the front. Inside was a folded note and a baby photo. The note read, "I didn't know what else to do. I'm sorry. Please don't hate him too. T." I stared at that picture for a long time. The kid had her eyes, Landon's dimples, and for a moment, I wanted to feel rage again. It would have been easier. But all I could think was how none of it was that baby's fault. So I folded the photo back into the envelope and tucked it in my toolbox. Not forgiveness, just storage. Weeks passed. Word got around the family, of course. Landon's name disappeared from group chats. Tessa moved in with her sister across town. Her mom called once crying, saying I should try to understand. I told her, "Ma'am, I understand too well. That's the problem." One night, I sat on my porch with a beer and that old ring box beside me. I'd kept the ring, not because I wanted it, but because I couldn't stand the thought of someone else owning the proof of my stupidity. I opened it one last time. The diamond caught the moonlight. Same shimmer, different story. I took a breath, stood, and tossed it into the river behind the shop. It hit the water with a sound softer than I expected, like it was relieved too. A week later, Rita from the pawn shop came by for an oil change. She leaned on the counter and gave me that smirk again. "You look lighter," she said. I smiled. "Guess I finally stopped carrying other people's messes." She nodded. "Good for you. The trick ain't avoiding heartbreak. It's surviving it without turning mean." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm still learning that part." That night, I locked up the shop and sat on the hood of my truck, staring at the skyline. The past few months had been one long lesson in trust, silence, and what it costs to love someone who keeps receipts on their lies. I thought about that baby again, about how innocence can grow out of something so ugly, and I realized something. Sometimes closure doesn't come wrapped in justice or apology. Sometimes it's just knowing the worst has already happened, and you're still here. They say love makes you blind, but that's not true. Love makes you look away. From red flags, from secrets, from the way someone's "I love you" starts to sound like a cover story. I used to think losing someone meant failure. Now I know sometimes it's freedom in disguise. So yeah, my wife's lost ring turned up on Facebook Marketplace. Turns out it was never about what she sold. It was about what I finally stopped buying. So tell me, what would you have done if your wife's a lost ring came with a DNA test and a family tree twist? Drop your take in the comments, and if this story hit a little too close to home, hit that subscribe button. Keeps the heartbreak caffeinated and the truth coming strong. Until next time, stay twisted.